Well, hello. It's recording now. That's so fun. Oh, I should probably introduce myself, right? Hi, my name is Zach. I am the co-artistic director, that's right, and co-founder of Boundless Theater. I currently work as a paraeducator at Lux Manor Elementary School, Woot Woot. And yeah, I graduated with a BA in theater and African American Studies from the University of Maryland.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Jake Young. I am the other co-artistic director of Boundless Theater. I am currently in grad school. I'm getting my MFA from the University of Texas at Austin in drama and theater for youth and communities. And I did my undergrad at Susquehanna University. I got a BA in theater performance. Gonna pass it off to Caroline.
I'm Caroline Tyson. I am very soon to graduate from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, with a BA in theater with a focus in design and production. Design and production. And I am the resident production manager.
Hi, I'm Dani, Ebbin. I am the casting director and artistic associate with Boundless. School. I went to Catholic University of America, graduated with a bachelor's of music and musical theater.
Hi, I'm Kathryn Reilly. I am currently the company manager for Boundless Theater, and I graduated in December of 2018 from James Madison University with a BM in vocal music education, and I am currently a music teacher for elementary school in Montgomery County.
Hey guys, I'm Sara. I am the Director of Public Relations for Boundless. I am a current junior at the University of Maryland studying theater. I am specifically focusing on stage management and design and a potential minor in arts management. So to kick off our Q&A, we are going to start with, how did Boundless come about? What were the first few steps to getting it off the ground?
Okay, well, I guess I'll hop in on that one. Well, I guess, step one, obviously, was bringing that idea to Jake. It's really been him and I since, like, the very, very, very beginning, and our friend Julia, too. But our first step was definitely bringing in the right group of humans to make anything possible, because as much as Jake and I were like, especially in the college times, like, we want to make art, and obviously we want to make art now as we have Boundless, but we had to find the right group of people who would help us make it all possible. Because even if you have two people who either love acting or directing or one of the small pieces of the collaborative process, you have to have more. And so we went about immediately trying to figure out who those people would be. And that's where we started having conversations with Caroline, who we had worked with at Wildwood Summer Theater. And then we were also just super blessed that Caroline just magically knew how to do literally all of the IRS and nonprofit stuff. So I could barely even comment on that. So I'll pass it over to Caroline, our nonprofit wizard.
So the process is actually pretty straightforward. There's a lot of paperwork and, boring stuff. But at the end of the day, the two big things are becoming a 501c3 corporation federally under the IRS and also within your own state. So becoming a recognized nonprofit under both of those entities. And once you do that, which costs about a couple $100 in fees, but it's pretty simple and easy for anyone to do. Once you've done that, then you can start fundraising without any sort of like tax issues and start really getting off the ground as a nonprofit. And also having that 501c3 designation is what allows you to start applying for a lot of grants. And that's another way to get money. And really the biggest thing getting off the ground is having funding and having money to start making the work you want to make.
I can also add on a little bit about kind of like the seeds of Boundless Theater. I know for both me and Zach, there are a lot of conversations at the beginning around us as young artists and like coming out of our undergraduate training as theater artists and being really hungry to just like make some theater. And, you know, the options that we had to do that were fairly limited. So it came around to us being like, okay, how do we create opportunities for ourselves and create opportunities for us to make art and continue to grow as artists and create a space for other artists to come in and have opportunities to create their art and grow. So I feel like it really kind of stemmed from this idea of like, how do we create a space where artists can come and practice their thing and create art. And we wanted to build that space for other people.
Last thing for me, when going about finding the group of people, because I know I touched on it, but it was also finding people who were like-minded, people that either, at least in my opinion, really, really, really worked for that specific thing that they really wanted. So like, not to say, well, no, I will. Like, for example, I've known Dani for a really long time. Weirdly enough, we worked at a dinner theater together, and literally watching Dani be a rock star from afar, I was like, hey, Dani, I have a crazy idea. What do you think about this? And just having a group of people who are so on the same wavelength when it comes to like the type of art you're trying to make, being able to have the honest conversations when creating a group of people. I and Jake, we were really, really plucking from our previous collaborators of people who kind of feel the same way. And so, I mean, I use Dani as the example because there's so many times when I'm talking to Dani and I'm like, wow, we speak the same language. This is so great. But yeah, I think that was the hardest part of the beginning processes anyway, and the creation of Boundless. Finding the people. Thank God for Caroline and her knowledge of the process, or else where would we be? But yeah, that's it for me.
And I think just adding real quick off of that, I think just acknowledging that a lot of this group really came from previous connections that we've had because of theater opportunities that were presented us by other community theater organizations in the DMV area, in the Frederick area, and within our own undergraduate theater experiences. So like really Boundless owes a lot to the opportunities that came before us that allowed us to build these connections with other artists and to have this team that we have now.
Awesome. So our next question is, what are your thoughts on the repetitive question of, but how will you make money?
We all have very different paths, right, as to the stuff that we do. Kathryn is a music teacher at an elementary school. I am a paraeducator at an elementary school. Jake is getting his master's, which could potentially lead to doing stuff in theater education. Sara is an undergrad, so it's a very large question to ask. And I'm not the speak for, but you see where I'm going with it. Caroline is about to graduate, and Dani has been graduated, did some work with casting, did some work doing other things. The money question is always going to be really hard because unless you snap your fingers and are literally booked from the moment that you graduate, there's a chance that you're going to have to do something different. Not like do something different in the sense that you don't go to auditions, but also do something different. Yes, the career path might not be as easy as, oh, I got an aerospace engineering degree and now I'm going to go work on aerospace engineering. But if you want to do theater, that's a part of the process. I mean, I don't think if someone goes into school going, well, the only thing I'm ever going to do for the rest of my life is theater, I would say, well, that is a really, really great hope. And I cross my fingers for you, but you're going to want to have other flexible job options just to like pay rent. Specifically with the COVID crisis, I'm really, really lucky that I have a job in a school system that's going to be paying me regardless. But I still, obviously, as I'm on this call and as I have Boundless, and I've done other shows, can still do what I would like theatrically while also having health insurance and dental and vision and all that stuff. So when people bring up the question of what are you going to do for money, there are lots of options for theater artists that don't involve theater, but also capitalize on the skills that you've gained from collaborating and being a part of a theatrical process.
And I can say, as a designer and technician, it's a little bit different from us. I'd say, ignoring coronavirus, because that's kind of put a dent in all of that. Typically, it's been not easy for me to find work, I would say, but being in DC and Baltimore, there are a lot of opportunities out there for technicians to find work, lots of overhire, I would say. And some teachers disagree with this, and I think it depends on your school situation. I started working my first semester, my first year, because that's how my school program was set up. And I think building those overhire connections is so important, because now I am on overhire lists, both for the scene shop and the costume shop with a bunch of theaters, and I've gotten a lot of work through that. I spent a summer working for an event company full-time, which was great. Summer stock is an amazing option to make money. I think the biggest thing for me is having a diverse skill set. My main skills are in costume instruction and set construction, but I also, I'm not an electrician, but I can hang and focus a light. So having a lot of skills to fall back on. So when you see a work call and you're free that day, you can go and grab it. It's really good to start building skills so you can be an effective freelancer. That's a big part of work for us. And yes, my focus is costume design. I want to be a costume designer. At the end of the day, if going to work a light focus is going to pay rent, yeah, I'll go work a light focus. And I think also, you never know who you're going to meet on a call. You never know what's going to happen. I've gotten props jobs because of a costuming job I've had, and vice versa. It really just open your horizons and don't be afraid to try different sides of tech theater, because there's so much work out there. And I think all the skills complement each other really well.
I didn't delve into it as much in college, but a friend of mine who was in my graduating class for musical theater, she actually during COVID has been making masks because she really took an interest in costume design. And I just bought 2 masks from her. She sells them for $5. They're adorable and they keep you safe. And it's just, she was using her creative energy and her creative mindset to say, what were the other skills I, took away from college? And now she's, right now, like most of us, unemployed. However, she's using a skill she learned in school, theater related, and is able to bring in some money for herself, at least for groceries. So totally with the tech theater, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think that what Caroline said really speaks to the idea of attempting to be a theater artist rather than being a costume designer or an actor or a stage manager like that, especially being very early in my career and still being in school. That's something that I have really been focusing on. And even in my search for internships and jobs and show opportunities, I'm not only applying, although my main focus is stage management, but I'm also looking for jobs in marketing and arts administration, especially with my work with Boundless. I've been able to find other things within theater and within the industry that have really interested me. And I think that the theater industry in general allows for artists to have very multifaceted careers. And I think that that's a really interesting thing. And especially when you are a freelancer and you are working contract to contract in a lot of situations, it does kind of allow you to have multiple streams of income potentially, in addition to working, as Zach said, quote unquote, different jobs than you want or really anticipated having post-graduation.
I wanted to say on the music side of things, I never intended to be a music director or even a company manager. But when I was in college, I was studying vocal music education. I was learning how to be a teacher, which is what I'm doing now. But when I was in college, I became friends with Zach. And at the time, I was also interested in arts management or arts administration. And, he said, oh, well, hey, come, let's see what we can do with Boundless. And I realized that I had a love for event planning in the arts, which is just another thing that you can do. Do I do that anymore? No. But it's something that if the opportunity comes along, it's really interesting to do. So I wanted to add that.
Yeah, and I think just adding off of everything that's being said, like I'm totally like check marking everything that's being said, like some really, really, really great points. And I think a lot of that speaks to my experience as well, especially coming out of undergrad. I know I had a focus in directing that was kind of driving me as an artist, but also I was really interested in education and the facilitation side of directing. So, you know, for me, it was leaning into education opportunities as work as well as directing opportunities. And with that, like really finding like for that like other job that might not be the direct job that's like your pure, like your sole artistic interest, maybe that other job is something that's also like giving you passion and driving you in a different way though. So I really feel like finding other passions as well that can be that other job and that can help maybe inform yourself as an artist too. I know for me, I was really interested in doing theater work with folks with cognitive and developmental differences. So a side job that I got was working for a nonprofit that did direct support services for those folks. And through that, I also got opportunities to do like theater education workshops through that nonprofit. You know, so for me, it was like finding that other job that's another passion of yours and feeding off of that as well, I think is really important.
All right, our next question is, how did you decide on your focus in theater?
I can start there. I totally fell into theater accidentally. I started college. I wanted to be a sociology major, and that's what I was for my first year. And I did theater for fun with my friends. And then one summer, I was doing a sociology internship and working on Grease with Jake. And I was like, oh, I really like doing props. I want to do this for a career. And like after that summer, I changed my major. And I went into being a theater major, wanting to be a props and scenic design focus. And that was going great for my first year. And then I met the costume designer at my first school, which was Howard University, and I got to shadow her in a bunch of shows at Roundhouse and Cinetic and other theaters in DC, and I absolutely fell in costuming. I fell into love with costuming, and I was like, oh, no, wait, no, this is what I want to do. So I think my background in props and sets is really helpful for me, and it absolutely informs what I do. And I think it's really important to explore their options, because I went to school and I was like, no, I don't want to know how to sew. I don't want to know how to do costumes. I don't have any interest in this, and it's like my greatest passion now. So I think letting yourself explore and letting yourself find different avenues within theater and then deciding what you want is a really great idea, because if I had just gone to school and said, yep, I'm a set designer, that's it, like I wouldn't have discovered this amazing side of theater that I love. So I think it's great to know what you want going into college, but also don't be afraid to branch out, because you never know what you're going to find your greatest passion in.
Yeah, I also fell into theater a little bit accidentally. I did it in high school and I liked it, but it was always on the performing side. And then the same summer that Caroline did Grease, I did 9 with the same company, which is where I met a lot of my current friends today. And so those people in my life kind of was like, you should try to music direct something. So I kind of went into a show not knowing what I was doing, making a lot of mistakes, but having a blast along the way. And now it's something that is my greatest joy as a hobby. Music directing is, what I look forward to every day. After my day job, it's the best thing in the world. So I totally didn't know what I was doing. Now I like to think that I'm okay at it, and it's something that I couldn't imagine myself not doing. And so that's how that fell into my lap.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a really similar story, actually. I went into undergrad with a theater performance emphasis. I'd done theater throughout high school, mainly as a performer. And I thought yes, performing is what I want to do. I want to be an actor. I start undergrad, I'm acting in shows, and I'm still really interested in that and have a passion for that. But then through acting, I got to be in rooms with so many different directors, and suddenly became really interested in how directors ran rooms, how directors, design concepts for shows, and really how directors work with actors as collaborators in building a theater piece. And there's something really interesting and special about that, that I felt myself wanting to explore more and more. And then, when I was a junior in college, this opportunity kind of fell in my lap of directing the musical Godspell, which Zach was actually in that cast. And it was my first time directing. I mean, I might have directed like one scene or two before then, but it was my first time directing anything that was like a full length show. And it was like a musical. And I really just was using what I had observed other directors doing and pulling from that and then adding my own perspective and ideas to what directing should be. But I had no formal training in directing at all. And kind of went for it and did the thing. And it became something that I was so passionate about. And from that day forward, I was yes, I love doing this. I love being in a room and facilitating a group of actors and working with them. And there's something really special about the art that happens in that rehearsal room that I was just this is everything. So that's really how I kind of found my focus.
So for me, when I moved to Maryland from Florida, when I was in Florida, I loved sports so much. I mean, I still love sports, but I played, and my mom was looking for something for me to do. My first summer in Maryland, she was like, "You should do this theater camp," and I was like, "Okay." I did show choir in Florida, so why not? I guess, sure. And then I did one show, and that show turned into me doing 4 shows a year. And then that it spiraled out of control, and now I'm such a huge nerd. So thanks, Mom. But when I got to college, I really, 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 really wanted to perform. I mean, I still do. I still love performing. And I think, though I graduated with my emphasis or focus being performance, the moment I was done with my degree, I was like, man, I want to direct. So I started directing, and I've loved directing ever since. And I got really passionate about arts administration, and I think at least in my personal journey, it showed me how much things can change, how your passions can shift. I was really lucky to go to a BA program where I got the ability to go and do a bunch of different things, because I think that really gave me the background in what we're now doing, and I also think it made me a really well-rounded artist that helped really shape what now I'm focusing on, which I'm really, really grateful for.
I'll go. So I feel like I'm definitely a product of Frederick Arts. I was a competitive dancer with Dance Unlimited Repertory Company. I did shows at the Met. My first professional show was at the Met. I was a baby. I did stuff at the Weinberg. It's all these community spaces really shaped me into who I am. I went to school for musical theater because at the time performing was number one. And then later through different organizations where I was artistic director, directing, casting, choreographing, especially choreographing, I sort of fell in love with being behind the table, and I got some just strange opportunities to work with incredible people in casting and in choreography. And that is kind of just where it took me. I think performing is not off the books for me. It will be something I come back to when I'm a Patti LuPone age, which will be great. But for now, I encourage anybody to just if performing is it, keep going with that. And you'll be surprised though what other things you might find that you love that you can add to your toolbox.
For me, I also grew up doing shows. In high school, I got really, really involved in theater, but I've been acting since I was 5, in community productions in Florida and just kind of taking random opportunities whenever I could. But in high school, I really, really fell in love with it, but was not getting a lot of support from just people who I really looked up to, whether it was family members or friends, to pursue an arts career. And I think everyone really emphasized the uncertainty, especially financially, in pursuing an arts career, which it's there, certainly. But I actually started going to American University for my freshman year of college, and I was studying international relations, pre-law, which is a little bit different than what I'm doing now. And it was the first year in probably 5 or 6 years that I hadn't been in a show. Like, I hadn't been in a show since I graduated. And the first summer with Wildwood, which was my first stage management experience. But from August to my first show with Boundless in April, I had no theater in my life. I went and saw shows, but I was not actively participating in anything. And it was one of the hardest times in my life because I was not engaging with the thing that I love the most in the world. And it kind of made me really think that I needed to go back to it. And I was trying to think of ways to switch my major to business for entertainment. But I realized that that really wasn't what I wanted. And my experience with stage managing the summer before, which was something that I had never done before, but like fell madly in love with, and felt like it was a really good mix of my passion for, you know, leading people and managing people and advocating for people with art, and really being on that side of the table was something that I had never experienced in that way, and something that I just adored. So moving forward, I applied to transfer to Maryland and stage managed another show and have been doing more admin stuff with Boundless. But over time, I've realized that although there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of doubt going into a career where, I mean, especially now in the time of COVID, like nothing is guaranteed, and that's really scary. But I do believe that the only constant thing in life is change. And as artists, like, we have to adapt. And I think that art is more necessary right now and in times like these than ever. So yes, it's scary, but I'm happy that ultimately, you know, all of those turns led me here. So, all right. Our next question is kind of a two-part question. So, are audition opportunities for college productions usually open to non-drama majors? And second part is, how does collegiate theater work? So,
the first part of that question, I think, depends on your school / who's doing the casting. At University of Maryland, I know we've had a history of casting non-majors. I know at some schools, it's like, well, these students auditioned to get into the theater department, so these productions are mostly for them. It really, really depends. For the second part of that question, what was it? How does like collegiate theater work? Again, it really, really, really depends on your school. I can speak to my experience. University of Maryland has a BA, so that means as much as we have focuses and we spend our extra time on our focuses, you have to take a certain amount of history classes, design classes, and et cetera, and your time gets really spread out versus at a like faux conservatory program or conservatory program where you eat, sleep, breathe the thing that you have claimed as your focus. I'm trying to think, how does collegiate theater work? I'll return to that. I'll let someone else answer while I think about it.
I'll chime in with like a little bit of my experience. So I went to a small liberal arts school in Pennsylvania called Susquehanna University, and it was also a BA in theater program. So its focus was a little bit more broad, as Zach was suggesting for his program as well. So we had theater history classes we had to take, as well as like classes outside our major to take, and then performance classes or whatever your emphasis was, whether it was performance or production. So that was kind of what my experience was like. But I think overall, like, it's really depends on the school, what your experience or what that program is going to be like. Usually if you go to that school's website, they have like an outline of the program, which might give you a good idea for like what their curriculum is. So, you know, what classes are outlined in their curriculum is usually what they're going to be focusing on or leaning more towards. And I found that usually that is really crafted around the professors and the faculty that teach at that school and what their specialties are. So another like really, something that helped me, especially when I was searching for grad schools, because I had more knowledge about this than when I did when I was searching for undergrads, was looking at those professors' bios and searching them on Google and seeing what their scholarship is, and what their resumes are, because really I feel like that is what your college studies are going to lean more towards, in general. And also in terms of the auditioning question, for my school, because we were a fairly small school, we had to audition outside of majors. Like there's some shows we could probably cast with just majors, and I think preference was usually always given to the majors. But there was a lot of non-majors that would audition and be cast within the production. And then also we had a lot of second stage shows. So we had a main stage season, which were like the big productions, and the second stage season, which was usually more student ran. And in those second stage shows, a lot of those shows were cast with non-majors, as well as majors. So there was opportunities in my program, but again, different for every program.
I would say auditioning in college is so different from auditioning in real life. It just is so educational, at least from my experience. At my school, I went to Catholic. Anybody could audition. And I remember one of my good friends, he was, psychology, I think was his major. He was the lead in almost every show. So that just like goes to show you. Jake, totally agree. Love that you mentioned looking up professors' resumes. That's extremely important because they're going to teach what they know. And if you're going to school for musical theater and your voice teacher has only done opera, hey, maybe not the greatest decision. I will say I went to school. My school was a bachelor's of music for musical theater, which is different from a BFA. It's very much like a conservatory. However, the focus is music. For me, that was the right choice. I just finished school at a college preparatory in DC, Duke Ellington School of the Arts, where I was an acting major. So I was like heavy acting all day long, method. That's all I did. And so I knew my undergrad needed to be very focused with vocal music, vocal performance. And so I took a ton of theory classes, piano, choir. I sung in choir every year, every semester, which I loved. But that was important to me. If you're really looking for acting, a BM may not be what you want. And so just be careful about that. Especially, if you're looking for dance, BM is probably not going to have all the dance classes you want. And then just like ask people who go to that current school what they think of the program. That will tell you everything you need to know. And there was one other part that we were talking about, but maybe I'll remember. Come back to me.
For me, I have the same experience just because I'm in the same program that Zach graduated from. But like Jake said, we also have a student season. So it's called second season at Maryland. And those are student ran, produced. Like my first show at Maryland, I was in a classical piece that was directed by a PhD candidate. So, and then they also have pieces that are directed by undergrads and written by undergrads. So that's also another opportunity to get involved. But Maryland specifically, there are a lot of crossover between majors and non-majors in terms of auditioning and being involved in the shows. There are a lot of opportunities for sure. And I'm going to move on to our next question.
Sarah, sorry, I remember what I was going to say. Overall, I think college is what you put into it. So if you're not getting what you need, like either ask for it or just make it your damn self, which is basically all I did in college was just made it myself. The big productions that they did at my school were, Carousel. And if you maybe, you can look at me and know that I don't belong in Carousel. So that was something that was frustrating for me. I was on scholarship. This is what they don't tell you. They offer you scholarship, and it's great, except then you are forced to audition for all the shows. And if you get in, you're forced to do that show. So just be aware of that. But if you find yourself doing shows or working with a voice teacher that is not giving you what you need, if you are singing On My Own and you know that you should be singing fill in the blank, get out of there and do what you need to do.
I will say in terms of voice teachers, because I was a voice major in college, I did not major in theater. I had nothing to do with the theater program at my school. But in terms of finding the right voice teacher, I cannot tell you how many people I knew in college that, would complain about their voice teacher all the time. And to me, you're not getting your money's worth out of college if you are not vibing with your voice teacher or any kind of teacher. Of course, there are going to be classes that you have to take where you won't agree with the professor. But if there's somebody that through your 2, 4, 8, whatever years that you are in school, I don't know who's in school for 8 years, but anyway, that person has to be a cheerleader for you and will see you in your best moments, in your worst moments, and that is so important to have somebody that you trust. So if you find yourself in a situation where you are thrown in with a voice teacher that you know that you're going to be stuck with for the next couple years and you don't like them, you can do something about it. And if you can't do something about it, then something's wrong with the program, because they should want you to succeed. And a good teacher will know that they are not the best teacher for everybody. And that is so important to know. So.
Okay, cool. Our next question is, what are some ways to balance out an everyday career while actively pursuing a career in theater? That's a hard one.
It depends on the definition of everyday career, because I think there are some careers that, due to the need of the constant need of time, right? The needing of your time, right? I'm not really sure how much you can do. I know, for example, I was asked by a theater to understudy for one of their shows, but their rehearsal schedule, I couldn't, because I had a job that works during the day. So I couldn't do it even if I really wanted to, which sucks. So, I mean, I don't quite know, other than pray that your rehearsals are in the evening. But yeah, I'll let someone else try to answer that one.
I think that's a hard question. And for me, as someone who is still in school and working and also pursuing outside jobs that are not through my school at all, it's very difficult. But for me, I found a part-time job. I work in fitness, I work at SoulCycle, and I have found a job that is very flexible in terms of scheduling. I can pretty much work whenever I want for however many hours a week I need. And also the specific studio that I work in, shout out to Bethesda, almost everyone who works there has some relationship to the theater industry in DC. So many of my coworkers and friends from that studio understand the life that I am living and the career that I'm trying to pursue. So finding a place to work that kind of understands what you're trying to do, I fell into the best situation. And I know that that's not necessarily the case for everyone. And I think that it depends on what, to go back to the earlier conversation, quote unquote, different job you have. For Zach, he has a teaching job where he's in school all day. Same with Kathryn. These jobs don't necessarily give you the same kind of availability. I mean, I have classes during the day, but I work from 5 o'clock in the morning until until my first class. So I think that you really have to make it work for you. And I think even about what, we were talking about with the last question, I think that it is what you make of it. And if you want it bad enough, I think that you can find ways to make it happen for you.
Yeah, I certainly think like when I was working for like small professional theaters who rehearsed at night, it was so much easier because you can find a million jobs to do, and in the morning till about 4 or 5, and then you go rehearse 7 to 11, and you can make your life work really easy like that. One of my favorite things is fitness, because they allow you to work insane hours. When I was doing some assisting over at Signature, I remember for Grand Hotel specifically, I would work at Orange Theory at 4:30 in the morning is when my shift started. I would work till about 9. I would get in my car, commute over to Signature Theater, get there right in time for 10 a.m. rehearsal. It would go till 6, and then I would run over to Lululemon, which is also where I worked, and I would work a shift, and it was super small shifts. And it just is kind of like, you got to do what you got to do. You got to be really creative. You got to know you're not going to sleep. But more importantly, you have to come to the table you have to tell people what you want. So you have to be upfront with that. If you take a job, this is what I want to do. And you need to understand that if I need to go to an audition, if I need to go to a show, I need to be able to shorten my shift from 4:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. I need to be able to leave at 10 sometimes. And that's just going to have to be flexible. So letting them know up front, these are my wants, these are my needs, this is my schedule. Most of the time when people, when you are so upfront like that and transparent, they're willing to work with you. But just like, don't hide it. Yeah.
Okay. Our next question is, do you think it's necessary to have a degree to be successful as a theater actor/actress?
No. As aggressively as possible, no. And for one, and I don't like always using Broadway people as like the example because they are like the select few, right? But like people like Alex Brightman didn't attend college. For those who don't know, Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice the musical. I think, if I'm correct, I think Stephanie J. Block was was at college for like a week and then said deuces. Even Noblezada didn't attend college. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, while the tools you get from college are great, and I'm not saying that everyone fits the mold of being able to just skip that opportunity. However, and Dani will be able to answer this probably better than I will ever be able to answer. I don't think people really care, as long as you have if you are in front of them in an audition room and you kill it, they're not going to go, well, this person didn't go to college, I'm not going to cast them even though they sound like a superstar. Like, they're not going to do that. It's what you bring to it's what you bring to the table. And at that point, once you start getting into shows, college or not college, you're going to add so many things to your toolbox anyway. While yes, there are some times where someone might get in if things are relatively equal. If, like, let's just say if person goes to college A or went to college A and the other person didn't go to college, but I, as the casting person, either went to that school or know those professors and I can ask those professors about you, then like maybe, sure, that might be an instance where like having the degree can hurt or help or hurt you depending on how you were in college. Don't be messy, friends. But I mean, if you walk in and you sound like literally everything, then they're not going to discriminate. And I don't quite like using that word there, but they're not going to discriminate against you because you don't have a college degree. And that would be ridiculous, in my personal opinion.
No, you don't need a degree. one thing I think Zach touched on was the connections that college does give you. It does like root you in your community. And so that's something to look out for if you do decide not to go through school, is just make sure that you're finding those connections that can root you and get you kind of in the doors you need to go to. Other than that, no.
All right, so this brings us to our last question. Our last question is, where would you say Boundless is, and what is your hopes for the future of Boundless?
Well, right now, COVID is, but I think, no, let me backtrack on that. I thought I had the right words to say, and now I don't.
This is such a hard question to answer
Yep.
right now. Like, it really is, because of COVID-19 and all the circumstances revolving around that. And the fact that, theater as an art form, like, exists around, like, the gathering of people and community. And right now that's, like, not something we can do, at least not in person. So I think right now it's hard to answer exactly where we are. I will say that I feel like for the future, I really, for me, I think I see Boundless being really artist-centered and community-centered, meaning that I really feel like moving forward from here, we really want to make sure that we are centering like the artist and like artist needs when we're planning to produce shows, whether that be really, thinking about how we're paying artists and compensating them appropriately for their work, and how we're creating a process of creating art that's like really centering what the artist needs, which I feel like is kind of getting at some of the conversation we've already been having around like how artists are doing so much and managing so much in their lives. So how do we create an artistic process which is really like centering those needs that they're having, and being mindful of them. So I see us leaning into that when we're moving forward on artistic processes. And then I also see us figuring out how we're centering community within our work and how we're creating art that's not just existing within a theater, but art that's existing within the community itself and outside the walls of the theater, and how are we interacting with the community. So with that, being really intentional about the shows that we're choosing and also partnering with community partners and bringing them in on the work that we're doing as well. So I would say like as we're moving through this storm that is this pandemic, really coming out of it and thinking about how are we moving forward with centering artists and centering community, to create art that's going to, hopefully uplift us once we're out of this.
How does one follow that?
No, yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, there is no really following that. Great answer, Jacob.
I think one thing I could add is creating an environment where emerging artists can collaborate and create in a context that's not educational, and giving newer artists the chance to understand what it is to make theater without a professor telling you what to, which is really important. Like, again, I am in school and it's such an important part of the process, but at the end of the day, me designing shows at school is such a different experience than designing outside of school. And I think having this kind of, not really a stepping stone, but this chance to make mistakes and grow as an artist without being told this is the right way to do this, and like kind of not really baptism by fire, but getting these experiences where you're on your own for the first time and learning how to actually put the skills you've learned into practice is really important. And I think having a space to do that, where we're doing quality work, where everyone involved is either a current professional or in school to be a professional, and where everyone's at least getting a stipend, is so rare and so important. Like, you can go out and do community theater, which is all well and good and it has its place, but I don't think it has the same educational opportunity as a young artist getting to work with other young artists who do this as their main thing, whose career is making theater. I think it's a really important experience to have. And I think it's also a really great networking opportunity for you to meet people from other schools, because, you know, 5 years down the line, when you're especially like out of design, when I'm say out of grad school, I can say, oh, hey, I know a really awesome choreographer who I worked with on the show when we were both straight out of school. It's also a really good chance to collaborate with people who had different training than you, because all these schools have different programs, different philosophies, and I think it's a really good way to get exposed to different kinds of art early on in your career.
Awesome. Okay, so that was our last question. Thank you guys for tuning in.